But there aren't many salmon around these days because of the bullies of Westlands. What happened? The selfish bullies that run the Westlands Water District happened. It often feels like getting the universal sign of arrogance to anyone who does not agree with their bully boy tactics. Westlands seems to be constantly encouraging their friends in Congress to weaken laws passed to ensure that the environment is not ravaged by those who put their self-interests above society as a whole. Now that we have your attention, if you are a California farmer or involved in a business that depends on agriculture, or just care deeply about keeping California agriculture productive and profitable, then we say, welcome to the rest of the story. It may come as a shock to hear that Salmon Water Now, and most of the organizations involved in working to pull California salmon runs from the edge of extinction, do not want or expect that to happen at the expense of agriculture. We know that healthy runs of salmon and sustainable agriculture can coexist. In fact, for decades, both farmers and fishermen successfully supported families and communities as they delivered bountiful harvests from the dirt and the ocean. That is what we want.
Are you going to be on my side if I let you up?
Our recent video, Bullies of Westlands, blamed the powerful Westlands Water District for pushing for water policies that have decimated wild California salmon. Nowhere in that video did we attack farmers, dismiss their importance, or their right to have water. We understand that Westlands exists to provide water for agriculture irrigation. Our concerns are about an attitude of seemingly endless entitlements, no matter the consequences. We knew the video would generate strong feelings. Many folks thanked us for calling Westlands out for their deeds and actions. But the loudest voices raged against our position, and they came from the valley. It seems we might have hit a nerve. Then there is this from the California Farm Water Coalition. They proclaim that our Bullies of Westlands was filled with half-truths. Well, in this video, we are going to look closely at their point-by-point assessment of our so-called half-truths. Of course, a half-truth suggests that they acknowledge that at least half of what our video contained was considered the truth. So if you're still with us, let's at least agree that that is actually a good place to start a meaningful dialogue. We are going to address many of the points that the Coalition put forth, but before we do that, we want you to know that at the end of this video, we have a proposition for you. Now, the California Farm Water Coalition was pretty tough on us. They said the half-truths presented in these videos will be well received by those who want to take water away from California farmers. The Coalition said that we ignored the scientific studies that identify stressors to salmon. In the Salmon Water Now video, California's Delta Challenge, we featured respected scientists from UC Davis and the Bay Institute, who specifically addressed that stressors to salmon include discharges from cities, discharges that are made worse because water withdrawals from the Delta increase the concentration and toxicity of ammonia and other pollutants. And we also acknowledge that there is sound science identifying predatory species who love to eat baby salmon, specifically striped bass. But it's important to remember that striped bass lived in abundance with abundant salmon populations for over 100 years in the Delta, prior to the excessive diversions of the past decades. But these same scientists also point out that a healthy habitat for salmon requires cold water flows at critical times of the year.
We do know what we need to do.
First off, you have to improve flows in the upper rivers, creating better flow regimes for the fish, making sure we have more cold water.
We need to reduce the numbers of salmon that we kill in water diversions. We need to improve overall conditions so their survival improves.
And there is absolutely no disagreement that water diversions have been at the center of the discussions about salmon. Pumping from the delta to farms and cities in the south increased by over 16% in the last decade, taking a significant toll. Record-high water diversions in recent years tracks directly with record-low salmon returns. The final point the Coalition made on the science is that ongoing scientific studies point to ocean conditions as a cause of dwindling salmon numbers. We do not know of any ongoing scientific studies, but we do know of a specific report requested by the Pacific Fishery Management Council in 2008 that sought the causes of the salmon collapse. This is that report. In it, ocean conditions was mentioned as one of multiple potential problems. But clearly, as you can see in this quote from the report, it highlights that the freshwater problems have been causing salmon to decline. But the problem with the ocean condition argument is that the people who make their living on the ocean report that the ocean is healthy and full of life, including the krill that salmon feed on. And while it is true that in some years krill have been hard to find, it's not because they were not there. They just moved. Ocean conditions have fluctuated for millennia without putting salmon at risk of extinction. However, freshwater habitat has only recently been degraded by excessive water diversions. So while ocean conditions can have an impact on salmon, the combination of ocean conditions and increased delta pumping led to the most precipitous decline of salmon in history.
If you're a grower in the Westlands Water District, and you know that you're at the far end of the bucket line for public water, why are you planting orchards, permanent crops?
Our Bullies of Westlands featured a comment by Lloyd Carter, a former reporter for the Fresno Bee and UPI. He said,
"We don't owe the Westlands Water District a living."
Responding to Mr. Carter's comments, the Coalition seemed outraged about his assertion. They said, "Farmers in Westlands receiving water from the Central Valley Project do not expect anything beyond their rights according to signed contracts." This is the most disingenuous criticism we can imagine, and it cuts to the heart of why we accuse Westlands of being bullies.
This year, Joe received just 10% of the water he needs.
Something has to be done, or we won't last another year.
When you can put the needs of a 2-inch fish above me and my family, and that thing could potentially bankrupt me, I got a serious problem with that.
So these are trees that you're having to tear down because of the water problem?
Right.
You are looking at the actual signed contract between the Westlands Water District and the Bureau of Reclamation. There are a lot of words in this 78-page document, but these words, highlighted in yellow, cut to the heart of the discussion. As you can see, their contract with the Bureau of Reclamation clearly states that water deliveries are not guaranteed. It specifies that the likelihood of Westlands actually receiving the amount of water contracted for in any given year is uncertain. Now, there are many possible reasons why water contracted for might not be delivered. It may be because of natural drought, just not enough water to go around, or because of other factors that have to do with protecting the natural ecosystems of the delta and river systems. But whatever the reasons, farmers in Westlands know about this uncertainty clause in the contract. So it's a high-stakes game of chance that we see in play in the Westlands Water District. Planting those permanent orchards of fruits and nuts is an expensive proposition. In a good year, it can mean huge profits. So it's easy to understand the attraction. But it's a bad bet, even a bad business decision, because as the contract clearly states, contracted amounts of water are uncertain. Put another way, there is a 100% possibility of an interruptible water supply. So we think it is fair to ask about the wisdom of planting permanent crops when it is clear that the water needed to sustain them can end up not being available. When we said in our Bullies video that Westlands is arrogant and self-righteous, it is because that knowing their water supply can be interrupted, they still insist on pushing for water and water policies that have pushed salmon to the edge of extinction. They aggressively challenge any science, legislation, or court actions that might reduce their water allotment. But it is hypocritical of the Coalition to say that farmers in Westlands do not expect anything beyond their rights according to signed contracts, when it is clear that water deliveries are uncertain. So we think it's time that Westlands take a good look at what their political agenda has done to salmon and try to be reasonable, to work cooperatively instead of being bullies.